Local productions on QTV are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Uncommon Sense. I'm June Udone. Thank you for joining us. My guest today, the Reverend Canon Andrew J.W. Mullins, world traveler and rector emeritus of the Church of the Epiphany in New York City. During his distinguished career, Andrew also led Episcopal congregations in Seattle and at St. Bartholomew's in New York. Well, welcome, Andrew. I'm really thrilled you'll be here. And I have such an imagination of what a priest has to be responsible for. But tell me, what does a priest have to be responsible for when they are a rector?
It's beyond your wildest imagination.
I'm sure that's something to that.
Well, you're dealing with a building which you're often the curator of a museum in some ways. You're dealing with all kinds of people who, some of which are absolutely wonderful and others sometimes not so wonderful. You're involved in education, fundraising, you're setting up programs, outreach to the community, just all those different things that one does as a rector of a church.
What have you learned about getting along with people when you said they're all different kinds?
I've learned a lot. I've learned that some people are very difficult to get along with, and in a sense, you have to love them. I mean, there's nothing more you can do. You just love them as they are. You can't change them any more than you can change who your parents are or anything else like that. So you're just, you are engaged with people who live a certain way and think a certain way. You can try to move them to a broader view, perhaps, or a more inclusive view, but sometimes you just have to accept it as it is.
What have you found that works to move them towards a more inclusive view or more flexible view?
I think part of it, you have to reflect that by the way you live personally, the way you deal with them, not to be critical of them and to be accepting and to, and in some ways ask for that in return. Just say, I'm listening to what you have to say, now listen to what I have to say, you know, to communicate with them so there is this exchange and a chance to look at a bigger picture.
What is the role of sermons in the church?
That's the burden of the clergy.
Oh!
It's a labor of love. And oftentimes you're trying to talk to people in a way that they can understand and all that. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
And the work revolves around what?
Research, finding things that relate to whatever the scripture is that will illustrate it better. Try to avoid talking in theological terms all the time. Yesterday I was talking about a sermon in which the term paraclete, which means the Holy Spirit is a part of it. And so I told this joke about in seminary, there's a lot of fluttering around this because everyone talked about parakeets, not paracletes. And so, and people really enjoyed that. And there was a laugh in the congregation, but that stuck in their mind. They said, aha, the paraclete, which rhymes with parakeet, and it is the Holy Spirit and all that. So you're looking for things that really connect with people.
Which are stories, is what I'm hearing from you.
Jesus always spoke in stories. He did not
Yes.
speak in theological terms. He spoke in stories. And that's what I think clergy need to do as much as possible.
I wonder if parents need to learn that too.
As a parent, I probably failed there, but, but yes, I think that's to tell stories that people can learn about.
Because it's more memorable?
Well, it's easier to relate to. You can relate to a story. You don't have someone pounding you over the head saying, don't you understand this? Why don't you get this? You tell a story, people interpret the story, and in that interpretation they say, aha, oh yes, that's what it means.
How much is directed towards outreach, social service versus spiritual?
I I'm not sure I can make that distinction because I see them together.
Yes.
One's spirituality should lead you to social service.
Yes.
Oftentimes, people who are engaged only in social service find themselves burning out because they don't have the spiritual dimension for it. And so it's a combination. It's the two are really one in a sense. And if you really believe what is being taught with the Christian doctrine and position of Jesus and all that, you cannot help but engage in social service.
So if you were going to instruct or tell stories or sermonize to a person who needed the spiritual framework or renewal that would support social service work, how would you approach it? What would you, or how can they approach it?
I think part of it is, biblically speaking, there's a number of stories with Jesus reaching out to people who are in need, who are perhaps not necessarily deserving what they receive, whether he's healing someone or considering a widow whose son had died, and meaning that she would be outcast and destitute, and raises her son from the dead as a sign of bringing life back not only to the son but to that widow and to that family. So, I mean, that's a biblical way of looking at it.
Yes.
I can also talk about instances in my own life where one time I was in the South Bronx and I was visiting a church there because I was at St. Bartholomew's Church on Park Avenue, and we were related to a church in the South Bronx, which is a very, very rundown area. And I had a car that I drove up there, and I came out of the meeting at the church and jumped in the car, and there was a couple people sitting along the sidewalk with the proverbial brown bag and bottle, and I turned the key and the car didn't start. Oh. And my immediate thing that jumped in my mind, they have stolen my battery. Yeah. They have stolen my battery. Jumped out of the car, went around, threw up the hood, and there's the battery. And it had run down. And the people who were sitting on the curb drinking out of the bottle said, do you need a charge? I said, that would be wonderful. Yeah. And lo and behold, they went out, brought a car back, put the jumper cables on my battery, started up the car, and I thanked them and drove off and felt guilty all the way home for thinking that, that they really would do something like that. And that being my first thought came to my head. And so, sharing a story like that in terms of how we assume that certain people are going to act a certain way, when in fact they don't. And in fact, the truly embarrassing thing is that they turn and help me.
Yes, a stranger.
A total stranger.
Just like the Bible says.
Which is very biblical.
Yeah. So, that's really interesting. Yeah. I think that humans are perhaps the only species that will help strangers. Other mammals will help their own, but so when you see helpfulness, which is always really good. Now, you spent a lot of time at various churches out west, or however they call that. But now that you're in retirement, how does that come about? You were commenting before there's an age at which you must retire.
In the Episcopal Church, there's a mandatory retirement age, which you must retire. You can never actually be a rector of a church, which is the chief domo of the church. You can be an assistant. You can be an interim that has a specific time that you're going to serve in a church, usually in terms of months or things like that. But you can never be the head of a church again once you retire being a rector.
Well, when you contemplated retirement, and you're a wonderful wife, of course, what options sort of came to your mind? What were you interested in?
We've always loved to travel. And we traveled a good deal before retirement, and after retirement we've traveled even more. And what opens up are all these other places around the country, all these other churches that are sometimes looking for part-time clergy. They're often called in the Episcopal Church chapels of ease, not meaning ease for the clergy, although they are.
Yeah,
but
really.
they're really chapels of ease to make it easier for someone who's on a vacation to get to a church that may not be open some other part of the year. And so I found myself being able to go to wonderful places like Anguilla in March to take a church that's open there just for 4 months, or to go to Montana, as I will, on the 1st of June, to be at a church there that's only open from 1st of June till 1st of September, to go to these different places like that, Sun Valley, Idaho, different places like that, and serve for a matter of weeks, or in some cases up to 2 months, taking those churches. And with that, it's you usually don't do a lot other than offer the services and have the sermon and all that, so you are not as engaged as you would be in a regular church where you're doing pastoral care and teaching and hospital calling and all those things, although those do come up. But it's more about going there and doing trout fishing and, and
I always
enjoying
find institutions follow the leader, the personality of the leader. And so when you go to these different posts for a short term, do you find different personalities, so to speak, in the church? I'm not talking individuals. I'm talking what they emphasize or how they relate or see themselves in the community or with each other.
Yes, very much so. I mean, they're interesting enough in some of the churches, for instance, the one in Anguilla, they, because it is basically for fairly wealthy tourists, they're coming there, every cent they receive in their offering is not paid to operate the church or to pay me or anything else. I in fact, serve there without pay. But they take all that money, put it into a common fund, and they provide education for the children in Anguilla who may be going away to college or to medical school, which they have a medical school there, or if a hurricane comes through and they need to rebuild houses or things like that, they have this special fund that they make gifts from all the time. And so all the money that comes in is used just for that. Not for the church at all. The church, in fact, is a very, very simple, small, tiny little church. But they do things like that. I mean, that is a wonderful way to function in a.
Did you find your training in school prepared you for what being a priest really is and a rector?
Somewhat, but not really. I mean, part of it is that you certainly are prepared theologically and in terms of biblical knowledge and formation in terms of we had a 8 o'clock service every morning of every day and a noon service every day and all those sort of things. And so you get into this rhythm of doing that, and that's something that is part of your formation as a priest. But part of it is that they really don't have enough time to deal with the business aspect, and the business aspect is a major part of it. And 2 things I did right out of seminary. One was to go to Columbia Business School. They have an Institute for Not-for-Profit Management that I went to and received a certificate in that, which is probably one of the most valuable things I've had in terms of understanding how churches operate, the budgets and all that sort of thing. And the other thing I did was a week-long intense seminar program in alcoholism, because that is one of the issues that you often deal with in the church. And
do you deal with illegal drugs as well, or is it principally alcohol?
It's both, but yes, it's both.
That's hard.
Well, it is. It's very destructive of families. The problem, someone always comes to you and says, my husband, my wife drinks too much, talk to them. Well, you can't talk to someone like that. They need to want to come to you.
Yes.
Because if you just talk to them, all they consider that is being browbeaten. And so you can't do that. You really have to find out some way that they were more interested in talking to you about it.
I learned that in a personal sense. My late husband was a cigar smoker for a while, and we had our daughter. He never inhaled, but I said, "Do you want our daughter to grow up around this?" You know, so I was nagging away, and he said to me, "I will do it, but I will on my own terms." And sure enough, a year or so later, one day he said, "I'm quitting." That day,
Really?
and he did,
Oh, wow.
and never went back to it.
Yeah.
And so purpose and choice are an important part of life for anyone, anywhere.
Yeah, they are, and especially when you are involved in addiction. You can be addicted to alcohol, but you can really be addicted to drugs. And obviously you're addicted to tobacco as well, but perhaps not quite as strong. Although I would imagine some cigarette smokers are saying, "You don't know."
You don't know.
You don't know.
What drew you to seminary to choose this kind of life?
Oh, that's a long, long story.
I'm here.
I think part of it is I started out in chemical engineering.
Did you really?
Oh, yes. And
interesting.
found that I was drawn by the church. I mean, I started in school in chemical engineering. I did not, graduate in that, but I found that I really had a great love of people and wanted to, help people and be involved with people, and somehow I felt that I was called by God to become a priest. And that was something that's very difficult to make that decision, to go to seminary. At one point in time, when I was in college, I had an absolutely beautiful little Austin Healey, which was just great, and I loved that car dearly. And I had to sell it to get money to go to seminary. That was a final.
Yes.
That was the final stroke. I said, I guess I really should go to seminary.
Right. When you felt called, what was that experience? Did you see an image? Did you have a sense of lightning?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't something. Lightning didn't come out of the sky and strike me and say you should become a priest. It was more of something I just really felt a growing desire to do. I also felt that it was important for me to do that. The world would survive quite well without another engineer running around, but I thought that in a sense, as a clergyman, I would have a way of helping people on a personal level, on a one-to-one basis, which this world has lost a lot. And so it was more that idea, and also just the fact that I felt that this is what I was being called to by God, and it wasn't in the Episcopal Church. That process is not easy. There is the devil's advocate aspect of it, and so they challenge you over and over. Are you sure this is what you want to do? Why don't you be a lay person instead that could do well to the community or do something else? And so it's something you must be very, very sure about.
Oh, interesting. Did you ever have doubts?
Oh yeah, you have. Well, this morning I had a doubt. But yes, you have doubts all the time. Doubts are not. Doubts don't disprove your faith. Doubts enrich your faith, if you will, because if you open yourself to a doubt and accept it and really go with it in a sense and examine it and see where it leads you, it ends up 99.9 times leading you back to a deeper faith.
Oh, that's really interesting. So basically, if you have a doubt, you would walk into it and say, what is it? Let me understand it. What does it mean? Is there validity? How can I see it differently or the same?
Yeah. If you're fearful of a doubt, you're fearful of your faith. I was dealing with a woman yesterday after a church service. She came to church because she has a roommate, and her roommate she found is casting, or goes through the actions of casting spells on people, cursing people. And the woman came to church because she said, I can't believe I have this roommate who's living with me in my apartment, and she is doing this, and I'm fearful that she's going to cast a spell on me or something like that. And I said, that fear is really because you don't have enough faith in your own religion. You're giving the power to her.
Yes.
To cast a spell on you. She can't get, I mean, someone's going to cast a spell on you? I mean,
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. You give them that power. And so I said, look more closely at your own faith. And, don't worry about someone's going to walk around casting spells on people.
Can you create faith?
I think you can enhance your faith. I think you can do things that will strengthen your faith through prayer, through meditation, through study, through a number of other things. I think you can strengthen your faith by doing outreach and looking at people and how they appreciate what you are doing because of what you believe. And so, yes, I think you can strengthen your faith. But faith is also, in some ways, a gift of God, which I think is given to us. Some of us throw away gifts, and some of us don't.
You know, when I leave the house every morning, I have this attitude that I'm always open to positive things that happen, like what do I call them? Kisses from the universe, sort of happy surprises. But I also walk out with a second attitude, and that is that I recognize and act on the behalf of someone who might need something in that moment. And some days nothing happens, some days a lot happens. But it always sort of creates a frame of mind, you might say, or it's like I'm vibrating on that level rather than one of the other levels that one can choose in life.
Right.
So you've been in this world for many a year, and the culture in America has changed a great deal over this time. But are the issues, the problems, the concerns that people come to you for or to discuss or are burdened by different in any way?
I think they're different in many ways, but some of the root issues remain the same. I think that's one of the things that I've found, that the way they're packaged is different, but what people are often seeking is very, very similar. I think people are always seeking to be loved, to have someone that cares for them. I think issues of unfaithfulness and or broken relationships and things like that resurface. Obviously, many years ago, I would be dealing with a couple that had a broken relationship, and I would counsel with them or talk to them, and it would usually be a male and female. And 40 years ago, nowadays that's not the issue at all. I'll have people arriving, same-sex couples that are still dealing with the same issues.
Same issues.
Of love, faithfulness.
Were your
and all
parents in the church?
My mother was, my father sort of was, which is often the case.
What values did they emphasize when you were growing up?
My mother emphasized education a lot. My mother, she was a teacher. My mother also emphasized a real concern for people, reaching out to people, helping any way they could. My father, who had been a state policeman until he met my mother, which she thought that would not be a good thing for him to be if they were going to have a family. He was also a Navy boxing champion and some things like that, so he taught me another aspect of life, which is
How to defend yourself.
How to defend yourself, how to shoot guns, how to hunt, fish, all those things. And yet, within that, a real fatherly love and really trying to help me and my brother, who were very close in age, to really understand more about the world. And my brother and I were very different in some ways. My brother's now a sculptor, which is interesting, and a college professor who teaches that. But I remember, I will always remember Father taking us to a boxing match when we were probably 6 and 7 years old or whatever. And I'm sitting there and looking at it, and my brother's cheering and hit him and all that sort of thing. And I'm sitting there, and finally my father turns to me and says, "You aren't saying much." I said, "Well, doesn't that hurt them?" So my whole thing is moral.
Thank you, Andrew. We have learned a great deal from Andrew today. For one thing, he was blessed that he had a sense of calling, and that he was brave enough to sacrifice his car so he could go to school. He was lucky enough that he had parents who emphasized the broad range of life: self-sufficiency, kindness, generosity, interest in life. He has a wonderful way of walking into doubt or uncertainty, make use of it, check it out, learn from it, examine it, to make people stronger in who they are. And that he teaches by example. Witness the battery story. So before you prejudge, look for what is and not what you think it might be. And remember, do something kind for someone you know and someone you don't know. And tune in next week. Have a wonderful week. I'll see you then.
To contact Junia, send her an email at info@juniadoan.com. For more information, program schedules, and news about future guests, go to www.juniadoan.com. Thanks for joining us. See you next time for Uncommon Sense with Junia Doan.
Local productions on QTV are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.